5 people were shot and injured in the Bronx in 2 separate incidents. One shooting was in a house on Barnes Avenue. The police say that was the love triangle. An ex-boyfriend shot a 39-year-old woman in the chest and a 40-year-old man in the shoulder. Earlier, 3 other people were shot in the South Bronx. One car pulled up alongside another and opened fire. All 5 shooting victims are expected to survive, and there were no arrests. There was a subway brawl on a D train in Washington Heights. 1 person was slashed, 2 others were punched. All were believed to have been drunk. And then a man was slashed on 86th Street on the Upper East Side. The attacker got away. Finally, in East New York, a man allegedly stabbed his roommate and killed him. That happened in the Spring Creek Towers. He was taken into custody and brought for a psychiatric evaluation.
I'm sure if a global survey was taken, many people in this world would say that black people are an angry, hostile, dangerous, and violent people. The question is why would they describe us like this? How did we get this way? Is this inherent behavior? Is it in our DNA? Has a scientific study been conducted? If this remarkable, extraordinary behavior pattern is exclusive to black people, I'm willing to bet that Malcolm would bring this up in his opening statement in court and would agree with many people about black people's current phenomenal state of violence. And he would prove our violent behavior was learned due to the ill treatment forced on us. And any people forced to live in harsh conditions are bound to turn on each other. Malcolm would have easily won his case, and the oppressive white power structure would have been embarrassed. Reparations would have started. I could hear Malcolm now saying, since you all agree that we are damaged people, give us what we need to fix ourselves. Or as the expression goes, put your money where your mouth is. You see what I mean? It would have been an open and shut case. When the symbolic wig-wearing judges of British colonialism opened their ears to hear Malcolm's brilliant opening statement proving that black folks got universally jerked around, even the tightest fitting wigs would have been twisted and flipped.
You know, the thing about Minister Malcolm and the fact of his demise, we can see the effect of it. It's like we're in a society now that, and we're right here, we're on ground zero. And this is where the bomb went off at after they erased Minister Malcolm. It took a while for you to see the total effect of it, but you can see the total effect of it. And everybody that's walking around now, they're in a doldrum. Minister Malcolm used to say that if you leave the nation, you go back to sleep. They sleep. You know, they're literally sleep. You know, my thing is, how can the Nation of Islam, which is supposed to be so powerful and so great, have so much hunger and black folks have so little when we gave so much? You know, even if they were like a church that has programs that give to a family when the family can't do for self. When Minister Malcolm was murdered, their responsibility was still to take care of Sister Betty and her children. That was their responsibility. But they didn't. They didn't do anything. They left her out on her own. You know, they left her on her own. Yeah, to struggle and pray that she died. Pray that she died. Had Minister Malcolm had any sons, it would have been a different story. Because the Negroes are so sick and silly that if they'd had a male child, they'd have to kill him. You know, just like they did with the Hanafi Muslims. They had to kill all the men children. You know, that was their goal, you know, because they felt it was bred in you to do the stuff that they did or what they wanted. So they would have murdered everybody.
To your larger point, I feel like that, and people, they might think I'm crazy, I feel like every time I see one of those young brothers or sisters being put in cuffs and the perp walk into the paddy wagon, I feel like it's almost a direct result of Malcolm being off the scene.
Well,
I think he had that kind of sway over people. Like I'm not saying he could have, eliminated criminality. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that there was so much power in his words and in his presence that there was a lot of people who heard him and were moved by his words, moved to be better people. I consider myself an example of that.
Let me say this. When Minister Malcolm was living, there was no crime in the area we just walked out of because of his presence. Had he had the ability to stretch his whole program out, it would have had a great effect on black people. And first of all,
that's exactly
more so, we would have had a bigger effect on each other. Because if you see Brother George doing something wrong, you and Brother Omar check Brother George. Pull his coattail, if necessary, get him by the shoulder and say, look, we got to do this like this. Right. When we was in the Nation of Islam, one of the things that kept us going is that they said that the end of the world is going to be in 1970. They said the end of the white world is going to be in 1970. Mm-hmm. Anything you want in 1970, you just go tell the white man, give me that, and he just give it to you, because this world's going to end. And as children, as young people, 5 years prior to that, we believe that. So we look forward to 1970. And then when things didn't happen in 1970, and they started telling us this right after they murdered Minister Malcolm, right, to give the youth another thing to look forward to, which gets you away from dwelling on the fact that Minister Malcolm was assassinated or murdered, and now you're thinking about in 1970, you better go tell the white man, I want this, I want that, give me this, give me that. Yeah. We were conned, into believing into a dream. They always constantly talked about Dr. King and his dream, but we were bigger dreamers than Dr. King. He only had one dream, and everything that the Nation of Islam did was a dream. It was all sleight of hand. It was all, this is how this is going to be. We went for our brother, we went for ourselves, that all went out the window after Minister Malcolm. After Minister Malcolm left, it was a free-for-all.
And it was basically a mad grab for cash.
Oh, yeah. It was about the money. It was about the money. It was about how much money they could generate, how much money they could make, how much money they could have, how good they could look. Captain Joseph he used to drive an old raggedy station wagon to moth meetings. Mm-hmm. But then he would park his car on a side street and then get in his real car and go home. He used the station wagon because he didn't want nobody to know how well he was living. Captain Joseph was living well. He was living high on the cow, almost said high on the hog. Yeah. But and he was a hog eater.
But, I have heard that. I've heard rumblings of that he actually, partook of the swine.
Oh yeah, he was a hog eater and a cigar smoker. Oh yeah.
Eating swine flesh was a no-no if you were a member of the Nation of Islam. It was taboo. Black folks who loved pork chops, hog maws, pig feet, and a bottle of beer wouldn't dream of joining the Nation of Islam because they taught so hard against eating it, because it was proven the meat was saturated with worms. Pork meat had a distinct smell to it, and Captain Joseph reeked of the smell. Even as a captain in the Nation of Islam, he loved some hog. It said, "You are what you eat." Hog eaters behaved a certain way, always quarrelsome, disobedient, never in agreement with the flow, deliberately contrary. It's no wonder Captain Joseph always gave Malcolm a rough time. We are in the year 2023, and as things in this world worsen for our people, they're going to get real angry when they discover had Malcolm made it into the United Nations to bring the international power structure to its knees, forcing it to do the right thing by our people, our angry people are going to want to know who among us betrayed Malcolm. And if you are one of those who helped destroy Malcolm and is still alive, and you can be found, that's going to be your ass. And those who died who are laying in cemeteries and thought they got away with it, the people are going to snatch their treacherous traitor corpses out of their grave and use their bones as drumsticks to beat on their drums in triumph, in celebration, for payback will be a bitch. To the living backstabbers and traitors, your best bet is to get cremated. You see, this is way beyond what documents, researchers, historians, scholars, and filmmakers get wrong. What date they got wrong, the wrong photo they used, or what word they misspelled in their research. The question that should be on the table, and foremost, is was the Nation of Islam, was the leadership of the Nation of Islam bootlicking sellout Uncle Tom traitors? All else is nothing but smoke and mirrors, sleight of hand, and deflecting. Only a month passed by after Malcolm's political assassination when these three men were photographed at a special dinner, hamming it up to show gratitude to a top salesman who sold Muhammad Speaks newspaper. What's really interesting is that this event took place at Muhammad's Mosque number 7B in Corona, Queens, a sister mosque to the large Harlem Mosque. 7B was less than 10 minutes by car where Malcolm used to live. Also interesting is that the Nation of Islam ceased using the Audubon Ballroom for their banquets.